Travis went good, so it appears with the change in weather and fire alarm early in the morning yesterday, I'm not getting rid of this cold, or cough rather, anytime soon. Church really did a number on me. From June 3rd to 14th, 1992, the United Nations held a conference on environment and development at Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It's called Agenda 21. They put as their title United Nations Sustainable Development. And it's now been nicknamed the Depopulation Agenda, because it allows nations to determine the population for their nation. So if they choose to exterminate people, that's their right and privilege. It's based on the fear that the Earth cannot sustain a population greater than a certain number. That apparently there's not enough available resources for the Earth to sustain a certain number of humans. That's all BS. Having done the math on all of the land masses around the world, building up, the Earth can house in 100 square feet apartments 16 quadrillion human beings. 16 quadrillion. We're far from that. And so what then is the real problem? It's authoritarian governments. Who refuse to regulate the economy so that there would be no poor, so that people are free to have as many children as they so choose, and refuse to build in such a manner to sustain populace. This was why urban cities were developed, is to build up rather than build out. But the design was not very effective, because having gone to New York for my mission for the LDS Church, the one thing I was concerned about is that we had to travel to get to a grocery store. We had a bodega somewhere near the corner. It's a 7-Eleven Maverick, just without the gas station. It's a Spanish word for it, I guess. But there wasn't really any stores. We had to travel to a mall, travel to a shopping center, travel to stores. And so in that essence, the design of New York City, with all its 5 boroughs, was very poorly planned. Now granted, the skyscraper didn't actually begin until, let's find out. When was the first skyscraper built? 1885. So, yeah, you can see the problem. You already have New York filled by this period of time, as it's the port for immigrants, the dumping spot. And they, too, didn't have a shopping center for each skyscraper, which would have been efficient and effective, as well as having gardens on the skyscraper, using solar power so that you don't need electricity and rely on a power grid, that our power grid is a national security threat as it's vulnerable to terrorist attacks. None of this should have been allowed had we had people do the right thing from the beginning. So with the family, right after World War II, there was the baby boom. Men get home from war, sex ensues. And soon thereafter, you get what's called the nuclear era, the nuclear age. And commercials on the new TV was talking about the nuclear family, 2.5 kids. They were purposely trying to use TV to brainwash the populace into slowing down the population growth. We just had a baby boom. And so when those babies get old enough, they're going to have babies, and so on and so forth. So they know how quickly the population will increase based on the stats of the number of births. And so already they're pushing families to slow it down. And what you had was only the rich slowing down the family growth, whereas the poor, birth control was not until the 70s or 60s, wasn't it? The sexual revolution. (1950) in May, first oral contraceptive pill, right there during the nuclear family age. Not interesting. When they were pushing pills for everything. Here's a pill for dinner, dear. It's steak flavored. And in essence, they were actually trying to exterminate us. And as the majority of my audience are older than I am, you have at least 2 generations, probably a third that's begun. Because I have 2 generations. Still a ways from the 3rd beginning, I think. I don't know. I was abandoned. But maybe not. I could be starting on the 3rd. But anyway, how many siblings did you have? How many children did you then have? And how many children did your children have? And if a third, how many children have they had so far? I'm willing to bet that the majority of you have seen a decrease. And we can even go to your grandparents, because you probably know your aunts and uncles, to see how the number of kids have changed over the generations. Currently, we have 8 billion, because I think we're closing in on 9 billion. That's not the number I heard. Google says 7.753 billion in 2020. I was hearing something different. Here's 2022, 7.97 billion. So yeah, so it's almost 8. So we're still got plenty of room if we learn to use the earth wisely. And that's the whole problem, is that you got big corporations uncontrolled by the government just devouring the resources, cutting down all the trees, not replacing them. And what's the result of that? Kind of need the oxygen from the trees in order for humans to breathe. There's a symbiotic relationship between the natural resources of the earth and humans, biological life forms. It's a no-brainer. And yet, it wasn't too long ago that the whole Amazon's been burned down. Remember that? What's the result of no trees? An increase in temperature of the earth. You can do a test. There's a place, let's see if I can find it on Google Maps. I was out driving with my dad once. I think it's right there, on 21st South. I think. Nope, that's not it. Because that's a pond that I don't think anybody should swim in. So is that the 15? Yeah, that's the 15. Don't think it was out there. That one, Sugar House Park, off the 80, would be a good example. Yeah. Not really. Huh, wonder where that was. But, yeah, any of the parks that you see in our valley, go to the park and find out the temperature while among the trees. And then drive over to a suburban development that's somewhat close by. Get the temperature reading. And then go to the target area that's right across the street from the Sugar House Park, where it's all pavement businesses, and get the temperature reading. You'll notice 3 different temperature readings, and the park will be the coolest. There's something about trees that cools things off. And so in the 80s, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had a combined Relief Society priesthood meeting during the Relief Society day of the week, in which they scared the parents about the homophobic agenda. That your son may be gay and they're about to come out of the closet. And so you need to keep them in the closet by being concerned and interfering with their life, when even if they say all they want is a Pepsi. And I remember the commercials in the 80s in Southern California. That's how I know it was a worldwide church event. The commercials started off talking about, if you notice that your kid has these outward symptom behaviors, contact us immediately. Your child may be depressed. Oh no. Well, Grandma did just die. I guess they're depressed. Let's call the number. And Grandma did die. It was 82, wasn't it? I think it was 82 when Grandma died. My mom's mom. But, and then it disappeared. And then sometime later, they were back. Oh no. If your kid exhibits these symptoms, contact us immediately. Your kid might be gay. Oh no. And all through school, the kids were eating this alive. Oh, you like listening to music? You're gay. You wear Levi's jeans? You're gay. You like girl dolls as a kid? You're gay. Not boy dolls. No, that's not gay. Everything was gay. And the white supremacist kids of the rising generation were loving this. Everything now meant you were gay. Because they were mocking the psychologists who were behind these commercials. You call the number, you get a psychologist. They were anti-gay. They believed that being gay was a mental illness. And despite the commercials stopping for a period of time again, but then coming out again, this time you're now a terrorist. I kid you not. I couldn't believe it. Your kid may be prone to violent tendencies. And so during the 80s, psychologists were performing human experimentations on those who were gay and bisexual with conversion therapy. If you're unfamiliar with conversion therapy and you're okay to watch R-rated movies, Clockwork Orange. The first girl I dated in my life, Cynthia Pollard. She preferred to be called Cindy. Cute girl. While at the golf and stuff in Riverside, I asked her, what's your favorite movie? She said Clockwork Orange. I hadn't seen the movie. I'm a good Mormon boy. Until I got I got to the age where I could have my own membership at the VHS rental movie store. And so I found it and watched it to see what made her like it. And I'm not quite sure, still to this day. I'm not sure if she enjoyed the concept of boys who are rapists getting electrocuted was why she liked it, or the fact that Stanley Kubrick is an excellent director, or if she was superiorly intelligent and realized that to reform requires something other than electroshock therapy, because in the end he winks at the camera to let us know it didn't work. He just put on a show. Oops, did I spoil the ending for you? If you're able to watch it, you've already watched it. If you aren't going to watch it, you're never going to watch it. so it doesn't matter. No spoiler alerts for that one. And yes, the studies they found showed that electroshock therapy was just human torture. And so guess what? Knowing that it's human torture, that it doesn't work to actually convert anybody, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has allowed its practice to continue until it was finally banned in 2021. Yep. And now this year I'm hearing that they want to reverse it. Want to bring it back. We are a happy family. But psychologists have done a flip on us as well. See, even though Utah was secretly practicing conversion therapy, mostly with Mormons through the church, they had done a flip that has now spread throughout society, where they now welcome and embrace those who are gay and lesbian, and they've even gone so far as to add other letters to create what we now have, LGBTQIAPO+. Did I miss any? They've segregated you. That's what segregation is. And thus requiring a law to protect you for each and every one of you. A letter for each and every one of you. A drinking fountain and a bathroom for each and every one of you. As if you've forgotten the days of segregation between whites and blacks in the South. And so despite their welcomeness to embrace you and encourage you to be yourself, it's still a trap. But how do you convince people who sincerely believe that because they have sex with robots, they deserve rights and privileges separate and distinct from all other human beings? By letting psychologists into the school systems, the grade schools of this nation, they first got the curriculum in the school systems to change. So that children are sensitive. Let's put it that way. There's no other word for it to summarize the whole thing. They become the first responders to a school shooting. And rather than telling the kids that the government, by failing to give that kid's dad a good, decent job to take care of the family, and him being bullied at school, resulted in him coming and shooting everybody. Instead of having the police locking up someone who truly wanted to hurt people, instead of the courts giving due process to people equally, Instead, you got first responding psychologists telling the kids to cope with it. And throwing in some drugs to calm them down. And so now you got a bunch of kids who are going through the school system, graduating with high degrees, honors, and don't have a clue how to do a whip of lurk work. Whip of lurk, lurk of whip. Don't know how to work. They're privileged. Because if you deny them a job, well, you're discriminating against them. If you don't give them a raise and a promotion, you're discriminating against them. And if they're female, it's because they're female and you're being sexist towards them. If it's LGBTQIAPO+, then yeah, you're a bigot. If it's a different color, you're a racist. They're screwing up society because of the psychologists who raised them in the school systems. And if the parents are concerned, hey, little Billy came home and said he's gay. What's going on? Oh, I'm sorry, doctor-client confidentiality. Can't tell you. He's sharing his concerns with me, and I want you to know you need to love him for who he is. Oh, okay. But he hasn't reached puberty yet. How does he know? Maybe it was all the girl dolls we were letting him play with. Psychology is very evil because they are not real scientists. They're fakes. They get doctor's degrees because the schools have doctorate level courses and graduations and titles that go with it. But it's not a scientist. They don't use any scientists. They learned how to bully people. And that's brainwash. Because that's what a bully does. They name call you, force you to give them their money, and they get violent with you. So if you are bullied by a psychologist, all I wanted was a Pepsi. No, you need help for your problem. What problem? You're angry. I'm not angry. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. You're saying I'm angry makes me angry. Bad Boys 2. Dos Equis. See, because the movies in the 80s and 90s, they were all trashing on psychologists for who they are, frauds. So Terminator, awesome. Lethal Weapon, awesome. Despite the racist bigot as the lead of the show, as we found out later when he got pulled over for a traffic violation. And even though he did what was it, Passion of the Christ? Was that his movie, or was that another movie? But, or did he call it The Passion? No, whatever. And so, Lethal Weapon, for example, turned into a TV show on Fox. Fox. You know, those who are homophobic. Those who trash talk psychologists. And Lethal Weapon comes out and embraces psychology. Complete flip. And it pissed me off. But apparently he did some off-camera violence that got him banned from the show, and then they put that other guy in, and it was a new show, and kind of got ruined. But That's the danger we're seeing in our society now. All psychological manipulation. And so you can see how our government has a false dichotomy, conservative, liberal, are playing off of each other, using us as the human experiment. And the church likewise does this. You're either Mormon or you're the other. You're apostate who left because you couldn't handle it, couldn't handle the truth, weren't studying your scriptures, you were a lazy learner. Or you're just unwilling to see the truth that the church is true, with the inverted pentagram. And we're supposed to be Jewish. Because certainly the church is not white supremacist for denying blacks the priesthood, denying women the priesthood and priesthood office, being homophobic as they are, and turning Joseph Smith, a founder they claim, into a Christian with Jesus as the Christ. Sure. We're Christian. And in so doing, they've brainwashed us from birth. Joseph Smith saw Jesus. We go on our missions. Yeah, Joseph Smith saw Jesus. The Book of Mormon, literally true, literal history. Jesus comes to the Americas because we're Jewish or Christian. We're Christian. We're not Jewish. We didn't replace the Jews. We're not white supremacists. Yeah, we don't realize we're white supremacists when we go and tell everybody around the world we're Christian. Jesus is our Christ. Joseph Smith, our founder. Book of Mormon, our keystone. That's how you know you're brainwashed. When what you read, learning of the Jews, creeds are an abomination, does not jive with what you're telling people. It's the big con. It's misinformation, deceitfully, maliciously designed to destroy us, to make us the enemy. Because the prophets don't go and mingle with society. We do. People ask the Mormons about Mormonism, because the prophets won't. And so the group that was at BYU that are now branching out to other universities now on TikTok or whatever, asking BYU students to expose their racism. Yeah, that's why. You were born and raised in it, and you don't even know you are. My mom claims she's not as racist as her parents, and yet I witnessed that for her, those of color are only good for entertainment, not leadership, not a role of responsibility, entertainment. So they were the ward activity, you know, the hula dancing or the pig cookout. I've seen that here in Utah, where the Polynesians in the ward would roast a pig, do a luau, or do the dance that has cultural meaning and interpretation like a language, as I learned. And they're fooled by the white supremacy of Utah Mormons, as they think that they're sharing their culture and heritage, when all they're doing is being entertaining for the whites. And this comes from the royalty of England. They had a court jester. They had others from other countries, African countries, come and do dancing and stuff like that. That's why sports allowed blacks in, because it's entertainment. And you don't see it when you were raised up in it. You don't see the abuse. That's why you will never, ever have a Mormon apostle who's black. Will never happen. Despite the loyalty of a black man to Lucifer, who's willing to, throw everything away and say, I give my soul to Lucifer. Inverted pentagram. Won't happen. Because they know about it. The church leaders. Especially after my lawsuits. If they didn't know about it, I'm talking to you, Holland, who had his little episode that wasn't reported until 2 weeks later. It's carved in stone, and Judge Waddups, the Mormon, called it an ad hominem attack. Where did he go to school again? Oh, right, BYU. So, I don't know if I'm gonna... This video's too long, isn't it? And so with the church, they're purposely being bad. They've lost a lot of Mormons. They're separating the wheat from tares, sheep from goats, etc. But they're keeping the bad stuff, the goats and the tares and the chaff. Because it's those who are still blinded or are willingly evil who remain Mormon. And the leaders are purposely trying to break down the Mormons who are naively following blindly. Going after family members, hoping that that'll break you. You know, lots of parents, when their child said, I'm, LGBTQIAPO+, the parents embraced the kid, but the church kicked them to the curb. So the parents went with the kid. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So despite 1978, Mormons still believe we're not racist. Never were. It was just God's law that denied blacks the priesthood. Right. Well, because the world was not ready. Right. So why did Joseph Smith do it? He didn't care about the world. He did what was right. So what was Brigham's excuse? There was none. He's a white supremacist, not just a racist. And Mormons don't know and understand what that means. Because as a white supremacist, you're not of God. If you're not of God, you're not a leader of God. You have no authority. You're not listening to him. Therefore, you're not doing what his will is for Mormons. You're leading Mormons astray. Thus, Brigham Young is a false prophet. Self-proclaimed false prophet. Which means this church isn't true. Just by that alone, despite all the myriad of other things that make this church not true. And hopefully now you understand why the church has done this to me. Because I grew up, yes, with all the hate, not knowing it. But my experiences in life opened my eyes. And Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon opened my eyes. Because they taught about the learning of the Jews and the language of the Jews. And I wanted to know. And when I went to the church with the knowledge, that's when I became the church's enemy. And I didn't understand why at first. And then I found that the church had ordered and paid for my disappearance from society for 6 years of my life. I got the receipt. That's what I went to the federal courts with. And they shut me down when I had the receipt. The church is white supremacist. They're a hate group. They are seeking to destroy not just Mormonism, but to overthrow the world and the government of the United States. Because they were instrumental in joining with evangelicals from the beginning with the religious freedom movement to be exempt from following the laws of the land. They get a religious pass, and thus they can do whatever they want as a religion. As long as it's in the name of the religion, they can commit any kind of crime and it not be called a crime because they're a religion. They're exempt. And in so doing, the Constitution collapses. First Amendment becomes worthless. What's the point of having religious freedom if religions can be exempt from allowing others religious freedom? Allowing others freedom of speech. Allowing others freedom of the press. Allowing others the right to petition for a redress of grievances in the federal court system. And to peaceably assemble. And the church gets protected when they're the victims. When a church gets graffitied, temple gets burned, the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms gets called in. Or the FBI. And they get protected by the government. Despite all the myriad of tips about the church, the government won't touch them. Again. They've touched them before. Shut it down. Church won't tell us this. Edmund-Stucker Act, 1887. Wilford Woodruff in 1990 in his official declaration number 1. Yeah, he's leading the Mormons astray. Read verse 11. He's leading Mormons astray. Read verse 11. Watch my videos. Solar and lunar eclipses. upload this another day. Maybe even make it another day. There's too much misinformation out there. Too many people trying to justify hurting other people, taking away life, liberty, and property of other people. And to have the church involved with it too, it's sad. So heads up, guys. Don't lose track of science. Let science determine truth, not people's misinformation.